directly, the Quran is the word of God. It cannot be changed. And Muhammad is perfect 1400 years ago, and he's perfect today. So if you ask an imam, what should the legal age for sex be? It's when a girl starts her periods. That's it. That's Islam's view. That's Islam's rule. Yeah,
Even if it's at 10 years old?
It doesn't matter. There's Muslims come up to me and I ask them, and I say, okay, so let me ask you a question. My daughter was 8 when she started her periods. Is she fair game? He said, has she started her period? Yes, she is.
Why are the Muslims a death cult inspired by the Quran, as per Tommy Robinson?
I talk to many Muslim people about that, and they say, well, that's not the Quran. That's not what it says. That's not true. They're lying. That's not the real Islam. That's not the true Islam.
But the Muslims you're speaking to probably don't know the Quran, because the Quran says explicitly 4 times, outside of your 4 wives, you can take whatever your right arm possesses, which is the arm of the sword. One of those verses actually clearly state you are blameless for taking slaves, concubines.
Yeah, then they tell you that you're focusing on those verses and you're not focusing on the other verses that are peaceful.
But the peaceful,
that's not right.
Again, just for Islam. So I've wrote a book. It's called Muhammad's Quran: Why Muslims for Islam. So when William Gladstone, and remember, what is your government's job? What are your clergy's job? What are the politicians' job? It's to warn you of any dangers to a nation. And again, so in this book of research, we put together. So when Gladstone, Sir William Gladstone, statue in our capital city, when Churchill, when they were reading the Quran in the early 1900s, the Quran was in chronological order. I don't know if you know this. Now, if you pick up the Quran, something Muhammad said one day is next to something he said 20 years later. It's an encrypted book, as you'd expect from any decent war manual. It's encrypted. So, but abrogation in Islam, which is not my opinion, it's Islam. Whatever Muhammad says later in his life, if there's 2 contradictory verses, whatever he says later in his life supersedes what he says earlier. So yes, Muhammad was a man of peace for 10 years when he first started, and he had 350 followers. And then he found war, pillaging, piracy, robbery. He used to go in and invade entire villages, and they'd rape them, and he'd tell his men, you can take the women as war booty. These are the verses. Go and take what you want. Slavery. He done it. He participated in it. He had slaves. He beheaded a whole Jewish tribe in one day, 600 heads. And then that night he married the leader of the tribe's wife, Sophia. Yeah. So I asked Muslims when I meet him, well, how did Muhammad meet his wife, Sophia? And they look like, well, I don't know. Because most of them don't know. Yeah. But he was a warmonger. He was a who married a 6-year-old, had when she was 9. And these sort of things.
Well, people will say to you that wasn't uncommon at the time.
It wasn't uncommon,
and it wasn't just among, Muslim people, and they'll point to other verses in the Bible.
But if you
they say when God orders them to go to a village and, know.
But we have the Old Testament, we have the New Testament. Directly, the Quran is the word of God. It cannot be changed. And Muhammad is perfect 1400 years ago, and he's perfect today. So if you ask an imam, what should the legal age for sex be? It's when a girl starts her periods. That's it. That's Islam's view. That's Islam's rule. Yeah,
even if it's at 10 years old?
It doesn't matter. I've had these conversations. So I know the questions to ask. There's one, in fact, we'll get this in here. If you can, put this interview in here. I'm outside my court case. There's Muslims come up to me and I ask them, and I say, okay, so let me ask you a question. My daughter was 8, when she started her periods. Is she fair game? He said, has she started her period? Yes, she is. Now, I know how they think because I know, what you have to understand as Americans, you can't think like you think because that's not how they think. So when you're weighing it up and looking at communities, you just think everyone thinks like you, like Christians. You believe in forgiveness, you believe in love. They don't think like that. When we see an 11-year-old child who's on their own, we see a vulnerable child. They see a target. It's a very different mindset. And they see a target who deserves it. So they don't care. And they don't value that woman like we value her. We value women. They don't. The woman's worth half of a man. That's a Muslim woman is worth half of a man. What do you think your woman's worth to them? Worth nothing. Deserves it. So you have to get your mindset out of how we think and put it into how they think. And then how they think about Sharia. 99% of Afghanistan,is this is Pew Research. Again, none of these opinions are Tommy Robinson's. They're not my view. The Ibn Ishaq, the biography of Muhammad, and I've done all this. So with the Quran, what I've done is William Gladstone held the Quran above his head and he said, there'll never be peace on this earth so long as we have this violent and cursed book. He didn't say an interpretation of this book. Yeah? Churchill said, individual Muslims will show amazing traits, as they do. Yeah, some of them are great. But Islam has the power to bring Europe back to the Dark Ages. Well, he was a prophet because it already is bringing us back to the Dark Ages. Yeah? Islam in a man is like rabies in a dog. Not my words. Churchill's.
Yeah.
Your previous leaders. I went through and found your generals, your army generals. In the introduction to this book, we find everyone whose job it was to warn the public, and they warned them. Do you know why they warned them? Because Islam was not in their nation. Now it's here. So now they're succumbing. Our government just betrayed you. Not our people, our government. When Donald Trump has gone to war with Iran, the Ayatollah, the supremacist mindset, and this isn't like going to war with Saddam Hussein, who wants to control Iraq. The Ayatollah wants to control the world. Their worldview is that Islam will dominate, not Iran, America. When they talk about Israel, what you think that Hamas come out, which were funded by Iran, on October 8th and told us the goal's not Israel. Again, I didn't say it. The goal is New York. The goal is, well, they've got New York. The goal is New York and the goal is London. These are worldwide caliphate mindsets who wish to dominate the world. So,
well, actually, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the original leader of ISIS, when he was a prisoner in Camp Bucca in
Before he let
Iraq,
out.
and on his way out of the prison, I've talked to a number of guys about this. One of the things he said to the guards was, "I'll see you in New York."
Yeah,
Now he's not in New York,
But his
but look
mind
where it
says-
is.
his
It
mind
is. Well,
says-
the ideology is.
But with the Quran, so what I've done with the Quran is, which is just make it simple, because we need to understand. You need to understand what it is. So we took the peaceful verses and we put it, again, not my opinion. We took the world's most renowned Islamic scholars and we put the verses in the order that they say it goes in. So abrogation, because then when Muhammad says something violent, we look at did the violent verse supersede this peaceful verse. So when you open the book and you see a peaceful verse, it just has a little line through it. And at the end, it has which verse abrogates it. Again, not my opinion. Islamic scholars,
Right.
it's an academic piece of work. And we put any verses of violence or jihad, or there's 100 that call for your death, your murder, your subjugation, then they're put in bold writing. So then quickly you can just open the book and it just,
Yes.
it's there for you.
It's not hard to find, is your point.
Understanding Islam and understanding the Muslim religion for a Westerner is very challenging. We are, the Judeo-Christian world is a religion that's based on faith, on love, on empathy, sympathy, understanding, generosity, kindness. So it's very hard for our brain to even process the mindset of the radical jihadist Islamist. Well, Tommy Robinson just gave us an amazing cliff notes of the Quran. And it's no secret. Many people have asked, what is the difference between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? The answer is not in the Bible, not in the prayer books, but in the actions. In the actions of the Jewish people and the actions of the Muslim people. Let's look on the actions and let's draw our own conclusions. Well, let's look at the foundation of Judaism. Judaism's seeds, Judaism's emerged from a man called Abraham. Abraham, who was married to his wife Sarah, as recorded in the book of Genesis. What did Abraham and Sarah do to establish this new religion of Judaism? It's called monotheism. Abraham, as a very young child, looked up to the skies and saw the sun, the moon, the stars, and said, this couldn't have happened by itself. There had to be a creator. And he began the journey of discovering God in heaven. At the age of 75, God appeared to Abraham, and they began their relationship as recorded in the Bible. The very first foundation, cornerstone, the bedrock of Judaism was hospitality. Abraham and Sarah opened up a hospitality center, as recorded in the Bible, called it Ashel, where they pitched a tent in the hot, scorching desert. The tent is said to have 4 different entrances from the north, south, east, and west, so that every person traveling would stop by the tent. When they come to the tent, Abraham and Sarah will provide them with food, drink, lodging. And when the people looked at them and says, "Gosh, this has been amazing. What do I owe you?" They said, "Just say thanks to God." So who's God? And they introduce God. And this is the foundation, the bedrock, the cornerstone of Judaism. It's built on kindness, on generosity, on empathy, on sympathy, on caring for another person, being generous for another person. That is the cornerstone of Judaism. That is who we are. That's what we're all about. And we have been that exactly from the days of Abraham all the way through when Moses came down from Mount Sinai and gave us the Torah to affirm that this is who we are. The Torah teaches us about love your fellow as yourself. The Torah teaches us thou shalt not murder. The Torah teaches us be responsible and culpable and accountable for all of your actions. This is Judaism. Preserve life, maintain life, prolong life. We are obsessed with life. That is what Judaism is about. And Judaism is the mother of all religions that came after it. However, in contrast, as Tommy Robinson shared with us, Islam has been built on bloodshed. He spoke about that Muhammad was a war monger. And one day he beheaded a whole tribe of 600 Jewish people. And he married the widow of one of the head who he beheaded, Sophia. And he went on to village after village massacring. His hand and his religion was built on bloodshed, on suffering, on torture, and the way they treat women. In Judaism, a woman is called the foundation of the house. We in the Jewish religion have been taught how to respect, love, and endure your wife greater than yourself. They are considered more knowledgeable than men. They are considered more spiritual than men. They are closer to God than men are. Not only that, when God gave the 10 Commandments, he told Moses, first teach it to the women and then to the men. This is how Judaism respects the women amongst us. God bless you. God loves you.